Hello and welcome to Azur Lane Meta. If after this video you want to help support the channel, please check out my affiliate store at kit.co/AzurLaneMeta. Welcome back, guys. Today, December 29th, 2020 is the day that we get a new update that's coming with a new KMS event called Inverted Orthant. It was announced last week, and we have a bunch of new KMS ships that we will get to look at today at their stats and their skills. Before we get into that, which I know you guys are all excited about, let's go through very quickly some of the things in the update. We get a new dorm. We get restocked on our limited purchase items, including a KMS purchase skin bag. Also, Promise Crate. For those of you free-to-play players, this 980 gems for 2 rings is your best purchase with your limited free-to-play gems. We get some mini events. And for those of you who are new to the game who don't have Sandy or Warspite's retrofit item, those items will now be permanently added to the prototype shop. We announced that in the last update, but it's finally being implemented now. Next, we are also able to convert those purple skill books into gold skill books. This is great for people who want more experience per less time, but overall total experience, you still get more if you leave them as their 4 purple originals. So this just saves time. It doesn't actually give you any bonus experience. Last but not least, before we get into the updates of the ships, we have Operation Siren updates. We have quite a few of them here. Most of them are just quality of life changes, but they are kind of significant. Someone on my server translated these for me, and here you can pause the video if you want to take a look at them. Overall, I think these are great changes that should help make the grind less tedious in Operation Siren. So we'll start it off with the SRs, and the first one we're going to go off with is the heavy cruiser Prinz Heinrich. Of course, KMS didn't need any more heavy cruisers. They have plenty of good heavy cruisers there, but this is the first ship that we have. She, stat-wise, is actually pretty comparable to Rune. Her HP is actually higher. Her firepower is significantly higher. Her torpedoes are higher. Her accuracy is higher. So overall, in terms of her offensive capabilities, just on raw base stats alone, she is better. Her evasion is a little bit lower, and she has the same amount of speed and a little less anti-air. So obviously a more offensive based than the Rune. Her heavy cruiser gun has 160 efficiency compared to Rune's 130% efficiency. She has more torpedoes and less anti-air efficiencies. So very much in the offensive category. When we look at her, she is equipping a torpedo base. However, she gets a torpedo preloaded, unlike Rune, who doesn't have her torpedo preloaded. So that's actually really nice in terms of getting that damage out faster. And while my Chinese is not that great here, it looks like she has a ghost light cruiser gun. While most torpedo heavy cruisers will get this slot taken up by torpedoes, she'll actually have a second gun that is automatically equipped and does not have a base that you equip with a unit. It looks like it has a range of 90. It has AP piercing type bullets, but the modifiers are 100 across the board no matter the armor type. It has a 21 times 4 base damage, and it has 115% coefficiency based off the firepower scaling, which is already extremely high. From what I can see on just the base stats here, she is a offensive powerhouse, and we'll just have to see what the skills are. She looks a little bit light and flimsy in terms of her defensive capabilities, but let's take a look at the skills. All right, let's look at the first skill here, Eisen's Bite. 50% chance upon firing the main gun to increase the main gun damage by 25% for 3 seconds with a 7-second cooldown. This is very good for that narrative of her being a top DPS heavy cruiser. If there are other KMS ships in the fleet, very likely, like Bismarck, increase self-reload and evasion by 15%. That 15% evasion does help a little bit get her more in the territory of other heavy cruisers, but not great. That reload is really nice, especially with the first part of this skill in terms of triggering that more often. For the second skill, we have every 20 seconds after the battle starts, she fires a special barrage and deploys a shield that blocks up to 2 torpedoes or 10 bullets. The shield lasts for up to 10 seconds. Let's take a look at this barrage. It's slow, it's got these stars, it's slow, its damage is not that great, but it does have a shield that can block torpedoes, so now Littorio's not the only one that can do that, and it's okay, it's a little extra damage. The shield helps block some damage that she could take. And then finally, she just has another barrage. This barrage is AP ammo with decent modifiers, and it's very fast. It strikes right up the middle. Overall, this ship has a lot of damage. We'll have to confirm that ghost gun is really how we think it is, but overall, I think she's going to be dealing damage at twice the damage rate of Prinz Eugen, and so this is a direct upgrade over Prinz Eugen. And honestly, I'm thinking in most situations you want the offense that she provides, that she is going to be better than Rune. So this is a pretty good pickup, and we'll have to test her out a little bit more when we actually get the server up. Next, we have the KMS aircraft carrier SR Peter Strasser. This was rumored to be a carrier that would make Graf Zeppelin pointless or potentially make Graf Zeppelin really good in having a dual pair. I'm really interested about this one. This is probably the one that I'm most interested in. She's medium armor like most carriers. Her health and all of her stats are basically identical to Graf Zeppelin. She gets a little extra reload and accuracy, but gives up a little bit of that anti-air. This is something that a carrier would love to give up most of the time. Her loadout is 2 fighters, 3 dive bombers, and 3 torpedo bombers. Pretty good loadout. Her efficiencies are a little bit better than Graf Zeppelin, but Graf Zeppelin, remember, gets to boost them 30%, so they're not actually on par with Graf Zeppelin if you're using a German plane, which you should definitely be doing. So let's go into the skills. 100% chance to launch an extra torpedo barrage on the airstrike. This is pretty good. We get 2 extra torpedo bombers. They're homing torpedoes, so that's 6 homing torpedoes that get to drop in with this. That is actually a lot of extra damage that we're getting here, so you can treat her kind of more like a 2, 3, 5 kind of ship. Next time around, we reduce all enemies' speed in battle by 8% for the next skill, and a 10% chance to trigger every second to reduce all enemies' speed to 0, so they stay stagnant for 3 seconds with a 7-second cooldown. That is a very RNG skill. So she, very much like Formidable, very much like everyone predicted with that clock underneath her, is going to have a slowing skill, and it's kind of really wonky. It's got a lot of RNG components to it. It doesn't line up with any particular airstrike. You could, in theory, have it trigger every 7 seconds, but you should be expecting it to trigger maybe every 20 seconds or less. It's interesting. It reduces their speed totally across the board, so it kind of takes out any of those beaver tag, almost mitigates. And honestly, it's pretty good, but it's just kind of wonky. And we'll see if it's translated any different or operates any different than this translation here. But if it is exactly as is here, it should be pretty interesting. Finally, for every KMS ship in the fleet, it increases the self-aviation by 5%, stacking up to 15%. So this is just like Graf Zeppelin's new modified skill that she got after the update recently. If the fleet contains 4 or more KMS ships, which you should in a fleet like this, all the carriers in the fleet, which includes herself, have a load time for their first 3 airstrikes reduced by 10%. So she has a little bit of an early strike. 10% is not great, but if she is paired with Graf Zeppelin, both of them have an early strike, so she actually can be paired with her sister pretty nicely. This makes a really awkward situation where it's like you kind of want Bismarck's 20% damage for airstrikes there, but also do you really want to give up Frederick, basically one of the most powerful ships in the game? Overall, she's a very powerful ship, just like her sister. I can't say right now which one I think is better. I think they're very comparable, which is going to make it kind of awkward for KMS. I was kind of hoping that this would be so much more dominant over the other one, and I think both of them are very solid, but it's going to be very hard to kind of uproot something like a Frederick, and she even has a skill that allows Graf to early strike, so that's even more awkward. But very good ship. Definitely pick it up if you're a KMS fan. And for the last SR, we have the submarine U-37. Of course, KMS has to have a submarine. Unlike the other 2 ships, which are gotcha only rate ups at 2%, this is gotcha at 0.5%, but she's also droppable at D3 nodes, as well as purchasable in the event shop. So this is effectively, if you play the event, a free ship to gain. If we look at the stats, the only things we really care about are accuracy and reload and torpedoes. In that department, she's everything, if not better than U-47. The efficiencies are on par with U-47. So let's look at the skills. We get 20 extra oxygen, which actually, if I look and go back at that oxygen, her oxygen is a little bit higher than some of the other ones. So she's going to have a good chunk of oxygen to stay and maybe get another round of torpedoes off. She deals 15% more damage to light armor enemies. So that's interesting. It helps kind of mitigate submarines' weaknesses towards light armor, since their torpedoes do less damage typically to them. They do better against heavy armor. Although, since most bosses are not light armor, it's not as effective as some of the other ships. When surfacing, we launch a special barrage that puts a bunch of more torpedoes in the water. That's fine. For every KMS ship in the fleet, you increase only herself, the torpedo, the accuracy, and evasion by 6%. Torpedo and accuracy going up to potentially 18% boost is kind of nice. Evasion is pretty worthless for a sub, given that they're hidden the whole time, and given it doesn't boost any of your other people, I don't know if this takes out any of the major slots here. We also have another barrage when she enters the battle. It's pretty standard. Honestly, it's a good solid sub for anyone who doesn't have the event exclusive KMS subs, but I don't know if it knocks into the top 3 subs. However, it definitely is in the top 6 subs, so if you need 2 submarine fleets, once again, she's going to be potentially there. But if you have all the other KMS subs, she's just kind of another standard SR, probably the weakest SR here that I see here. All right, moving on, we go on to the light cruiser elite Nurnberg, and she's going to be fighting for Leipzig's spot. This is going to be pretty hard for her to overcome, so let's see what she's got. She's light armor. Her stats are, of a light cruiser elite, but nothing particularly great. So our efficiencies are even worse than Leipzig's after retrofit. So when I look at this ship here, it's going to have to come down to the skills, which all elites kind of do to keep up with the SRs. Anyway, so let's take a look. Although I do notice a over 400 anti-air there, so that's kind of unique to KMS, since they typically aren't very good with anti-air. So let's take a look. Every 15 seconds after the battle starts, fire a special barrage. Okay, this barrage is okay. At least it's AP. It does decent damage. Modifiers are okay. Moving on, we get submarines gain 10% more experience from battles. Okay, well, this is the niche ship. Pick her up. You need her. 2.5% in the gacha. And the reason I say this is because leveling submarines is awful. It's so terrible. And so when you're leveling your submarines, you're going to need to throw her in here. It's not locked to KMS, so even if you don't like KMS, you're going to need this ship to level your submarines in the future. Submarines probably going to be more useful in the future, and you're probably going to need to level at least a set of 3. And if you don't have one of those, this will definitely be important. Okay, I mean, it's interesting. For an elite ship to have that niche spot, I like it. But let's keep going. Increase self-torps by 10%. Okay, her torps aren't that great. Increase KMS ships fleet anti-air by 15%. I guess that makes sense. She has a high base anti-air herself. KMS has terrible anti-air, and I guess this ship is just trying to be like, hey, KMS can do anti-air things too, like the US faction and a little in some of the other factions. But yeah, I don't know. For every 3 plane shot down in the AA circle, increase self anti-air by 5%, stacks up to 15%. So this is decent. I guess she can get an extra 60 anti-air more or less if she shoots down 3 planes, but this is once again slow and PvE only, but I guess this will help KMS a little bit in getting World 13 clears. The planes aren't even that oppressive in Operation Siren from what I've seen, not even in the final stages with the strongholds. Finally, she gets a barrage. Barrage is fine. This ship is interesting. I like it. It's not necessary. I guess it is meta, because if you are leveling subs, it's the best in slot. But outside of that, I don't know. I don't even think I'd use it for the anti-air capabilities in a KMS fleet. I think I just stick with what KMS does and tries to get that synergy on the back line. But she's interesting. Pick her up. We'll have to go look and see if there's any other elite ships worth picking up. Next, we have the light aircraft carrier Weser. So in theory, she can also get buffed by Peter in terms of her fast reload. Stats, nothing to write home about. She gets a fighter and a dive bomber, and then the anti-air gun. And that is, of course, the bane of existence for light carriers, is that they have to have an AA gun there. I guess they could have a light cruiser gun there, but she doesn't even have that option here. So let's see if she has any heal skills or any like really utility skills that makes her worthwhile. 70% chance upon launching an airstrike to launch extra dive bombers. That's not going to make up for any of the damage she's losing from having to equip an AA gun. If there are more than 3 KMS ships in the fleet, increase the self-critical damage by 20%. That's kind of cool, but not Not there yet. If this is the only KMS ship in the main fleet, increase self-reload by 10%, aviation by 15%, dive bombers have 30% additional chance to trigger, launch an extra 1, and they can launch a total of 3 extra. So they all have two 500-pound bombs, and this helps put a lot of damage on board, but I don't think it makes up for the much that she lost from just having a low air power in the 323 at max level. That's really low, and then she also has to equip an AA gun. All right, let's hope there's something good in the second skill. Every 20 seconds after the battle, give a random Vanguard ship 2 rotating shields that block 6 bullets each, and they last 8 seconds. If the ship that gained the shields is a KMS ship, heal Weser for 5% of her HP, and give that ship 15% firepower for 8 seconds. Okay, it's utility. This could be used in a low oil fleet, potentially if you wanted to grind and be oil efficient, but I don't really see having to go reach for her at that 2.5% drop rate unless you're trying to go for collection and trying to get that fleet tech for the KMS faction. Okay, the last 2 ships are destroyer ships, and these are not really obtained through the gacha so much. Z24 is obtained through point accumulation through the event, so if you should just play the event, you can get her. And Z28 is obtained through getting 7 gourmet passes, which I assume is just basically the mini game. You got to log in 7 days, basically. So these are, once again, free ships. They're elites, and let's see, typically free ships are not as good as the gacha ships, but I could stand wrong. Maybe we can have a Z fleet out of this. They're both destroyers. They're both like 2,000 and so health. Z24 is much more firepower based. Z28 is much more torpedo based. Anti-air is pitiful. Reload is decent, I guess. Nothing that stands out to me in any of these stats. They can equip a light cruiser gun, so that's interesting to me, but their torpedoes are awful in those efficiencies, so they are both basically firepower guns, so gives me an edge to Z24 in the stats alone. But let's look at the skills here. First skill for Z24 deals 15% more damage to destroyers and light cruisers. Okay, that's pretty standard for those pocket battleships. When other Z-class destroyers HP falls under 30%, reduce the damage taken by 30% and self firepower, torpedo, and reload by 15%, and it can trigger once per battle. You realistically don't ever want to be under 30% with any of your ships, and it doesn't even heal them. I guess it reduces damage they take. Not very good. Okay, here it fires a special barrage at the start of the battle and every 20 seconds after. The barrage is right here. It's okay. It just kind of goes right to the center. It's pretty quick. It's AP and HE ammo, but the damage modifiers are pretty poor. For every kill this ship makes, increase the firepower and torpedo by 4%, stacks up to 20%, so she's like one of those long-term grind ships. I guess she could be kind of useful for Operation Siren, since you're more likely to see ships fall under that 30%, and also you're going to be doing many battles over and over again, so you could potentially just trigger it, and that 20 kills, I don't know. The other barrage is just kind of a standard Z barrage, so I don't see anything special there. Okay, skills for Z28. Increase all Z-class destroyers' firepower by 10%, accuracy by 10%, anti-air by 15%, and if there are other Z-class destroyers in the fleet, increase self-firepower by 10%. I assume that's on top of the amount that she already gives herself from the first line, so that's 20% total, it looks like. And then of course 10% torpedoes and 15% anti-submarine warfare. Okay, just a straight buff. I mean, her stats are pretty weak, but I think this pairs nicely with like Z1, so we can once again kind of have a Z fleet. Like I said, this could be potentially a low cost Z fleet that can mine for things, but once again, nothing's here. Okay, for the second skill, upon the start of battle and 30% chance every 15 seconds afterward, you deploy a smokescreen that lasts only 5 seconds. Allies in the smokescreen have a 40% additional evasion rate. Does not stack with other smokescreens, so it's just a standard smokescreen. Pretty good. It only lasts 5 seconds, but it does start at the beginning of the battle, so this is actually kind of interesting. Kind of makes her potentially gives the KMS faction a anti-sub ability in the Vanguard a little bit. She's a little bit too weak for that. She's going to get blasted by HE ammo though. Let's see if there's anything else. 70% chance upon the flagship taking damage to fire a special barrage, limited to 1 trigger every 20 seconds. And this barrage is just kind of interesting. It's got a lot of shells that it dishes out. I mean, yeah, and they're all HE. The modifiers are not very good, but I don't know. So it's kind of like when Bismarck takes damage, you get extra barrage. It's not enough to make it up. And then the barrage is once again that standard Z thing. We looked at it exactly when we saw the other Z24. So that's our 7 ships. And so we have 3 SRs and 4 elites. 2 of those elites are obtainable through free methods. One of the SRs is obtainable through free methods. And what is my overview here? So I think Nurnberg is interesting. Definitely something you want to pick up for that niche of leveling submarines, and maybe some potential for anti-air in case you need a little bit of help in later stages, but I don't think she's any better than Leipzig. I don't think the light carrier is worth a shot. Destroyers are kind of niche for those people who like Z fleets. People using Z fleets, these are kind of good upgrades for you, but once again, Z fleets are just so far out of the meta, they're not really worth it, but they're so free, you should just pick them up for the extra fleet tech they provide, and then if you have the dock space, just keep them around. And then we have the free submarine. She's not probably going to be in the top 3 submarines in the KMS faction, but she's definitely in the top 6. So pick her up, and of course she gives fleet tech to your top 3 and whatnot. And then of course we have the 2 banner ships that we're focusing on. These are definitely the 2 best ships out of here that I see. Heinrich has a lot of DPS, and she's basically like a better rune, a better Prinz Eugen. She's even got shields, and her shields look pretty decent. And I think Heinrich, I think it's kind of a sleeper ship. I don't know. She just kind of looks like a standard heavy cruiser, but I think she's going to be very powerful. And for the aircraft carrier here, she's actually a good aircraft carrier. It's a solid aircraft carrier for KMS, and now they have 2 solid SR aircraft carriers. Unlike when I posted my last video, I'm like, they only have 1. And then a day later, they're like, now they're going to get 2. I think I was super hyped and most excited about this one. So I think personally I'm a little disappointed, but I think she's very solid. She's at a 233 loadout with a guaranteed extra 2 torpedo bombers that have homing abilities on that airstrike, so she's going to deal a good chunk of damage. And I'm very interested to see how this slowing skill works, and I think the 3rd skill is really good, but it also is going to make a lot of KMS people stay up late at night and figure out if they're going to drop Frederick or if they're going to just play one of the carriers, and if which carrier they do, because I don't think there's any chance that you give up Bismarck's 20% airstrike boost and all of her other boosts. And so that means you got 2 slots and you got to pick between Strasser, Graf, and Frederick, and Strasser buffs Graf. And this is exactly the nightmare I was kind of worried about when I saw this ship come out. I was like, if she's gonna buff Graf Zeppelin, because their sister ships, is gonna be interesting. Overall, I think it's pretty solid in terms of those. When I look at the maps, there's an EX mode that should be interesting, a SP mode. We can drop Gneisenau, we can drop U-37, U-557, and a bunch of other garbage. We get a bunch of new skins, but you know, that's not what we talk about too much on this channel here. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoy this new KMS event. Thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be traveling quite a bit in the next couple weeks here, so I might be a little bit less active than I have been in the past, but I wanted to get this out to you before I left for my travels, so you guys could at least know what ships that you want to pick up in this German event. Enjoy the grind, guys, and until next time, we do have a 10-hour stream coming one of these days, probably in 2 weeks, maybe, I don't know. It really is going to have to depend on the schedule here, because fitting in a 10-hour stream is a little bit harder than fitting in like a 2-hour stream. So we'll see when that ends up happening, but I do owe you guys one. Thank you guys for all of your support, and take care.